Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Mike Adler, Executive Vice President, Chief Technology and Product Officer, Enable.
Welcome to Empower. It's great to be back here in person. For those of you who may not have remembered, last year I talked about the Enable journey. Anyone remember the music? But I did that in front of two 32-inch TVs. It's very different to be up here in front of 500 of our partners and helping to talk about what's coming next. Where are we going? Where are we focusing? And it's super exciting to spend this time with you today, and both myself and my team over the next several days, giving you as much information as we can to help you understand how to own the cloud. And more importantly, since we're in Vegas, let's see if we can give you the winning hand to own the cloud. How can you be successful in owning the cloud? Because your businesses are changing, and you guys are experiencing it every day. I hear it from you in all of the conversations that we have. Right? Everyone is moving to the cloud. We talked with some hands earlier about the number of folks who are comfortable in dealing with the cloud and the cloud technologies. But how many of you are efficient in dealing with the cloud? How many of you are as efficient in dealing with cloud technologies as you are when you're dealing with on-prem, the parts of the business that you're familiar with? Right? And the reality is, we know it's a challenge. It's new. And the world's changing. So let's see if we can spend a little bit of time talking about how to do that successfully. So I'm here to tell you that you can go all in on the cloud and be successful. And not only just be successful, but be more successful with your cloud technologies, your cloud services, your cloud business than you have been with your on-prem and infrastructure business. And today, we're going to really drive in, and I thought this was really categorized best by a conversation I had about 2 weeks ago with a partner of ours. And I was asking them, I said, I'm writing this keynote, and we're going to talk a lot about the cloud and cloud technologies. And he said, well, it's pretty interesting because that you say that, because here we are, and I'm struggling to make sure that my business is as strong in the cloud as it is on-prem. And I said, well, why is that a struggle? And he said, well, some of it's because it's new. And so how do I stand out? How do I train my staff? Do I have the technology to automate and build efficiency into my cloud business compared to how my business used to operate? And over the last 2.5 years, obviously, I, the MSP, have been through a tremendous amount of change, and it's now time, as we look at the economic conditions, to make sure that I can be profitable and offer differentiated services using cloud technologies compared to the services that I offered previously. And so today, over the next 30 to 40 minutes, I'm going to talk you through what that looks like. Now, as you think about cloud and you think about why, it's really important, I think, to understand the chips that we're going to be playing with. And the reality is that investment, IT investment in the cloud is coming, and it's real. By 2025, 95% of new digital workloads will be deployed on cloud-native platforms. So those servers that you've managed, the applications that you've managed, those are all going to the cloud. And that presents new challenges. Because you're not just going to buy a server, install an operating system, right, put it in a data closet and put it in a data center and can have it work. You're going to now have to deal with something that's got dynamic charges, right? It's like a bad roulette game. They just take the money, the cash register keeps on dinging as you continue to put money into the coin slot. That's how cloud works. And not only that, but now you have this data problem, right? So now data's not just on servers and data's not just on laptops, but now data's in all of these SaaS applications being shared on OneDrive and all these other places. And organizations realize this, and so they're going to spend more for great cloud data protection. Why? Because they need to make sure their data is protected no matter where it is. And lastly, as organizations look at their IT spend, and they look at how IT is a part of their business, all of you know this, but in this survey, we found that by 2025, most organizations were going to increase spend by 45% to help grow IT resiliency. Why? Because if IT goes down, their business goes down. We all sort of understand that, but the fact that that's now permeating your customer base, right? And that your small and medium-sized businesses that you service understand that, that's going to give tremendous momentum. Even in a challenging economic environment, that is going to give momentum to you as service providers to provide cloud services, to take advantage of that spend, and provide new and interesting services for the cloud. So before you sit down and play at the cloud, you probably need to read the table, know the players, right? What are we talking about when we talk about this? Well, I think we've all sort of gotten used to SaaS workloads, right? I was peeking from the corner back there, and a lot of you had talked about cloud migrations, and a bunch of hands went up. So you need to know what SaaS workloads are, how to measure them, how to cost them, right? How to run them efficiently. Better make sure you understand how to do that. And on top of that, of course, is the data security and resilience pieces of it, right? Just because you're moving a workload to the cloud and the data is going to the cloud, well, is the data protected? Is it secure? Is it backed up? Right? An important part of any of the cloud interfaces that you're going to have to build and manage is understanding how that data is going to move around. The future of work. We talked about remote work earlier with John. I am sure that the challenges over the last 2.5 years has completely changed the way that you have to craft your services. Because not only, by the way, are your employees probably working remote, but obviously the small and medium-sized businesses, their employees are working remote. And so the times that they're in the office, the times they're not in the office. Yes, we're all really good. Hopefully all of you are providing remote monitoring and management, but there's a lot of assumptions, both security as well as data protection, that assume that employees are sort of in and around the office. And those assumptions are false. And we've all learned that pretty quickly over the last 2.5 years. So the future of work, the return to normal or the new normal, that's a big part of how we have to think about IT services. A big part about how we as Enable think about how do we help you, our partners, be successful in this new normal, both with your internal workforce, but also the workforce that you're providing IT services for. Spending control, I referenced this earlier. Cloud spend is different, right? I don't know how many of you of the finance types are in the room, but one of the big learnings for me as a product person, when we move things to the cloud, we pay by the CPU hour, a really interesting measure, right? I also own an electric car, and so like I pay by the kilowatt hour, not the miles to the gallon. It's that kind of difference, right? It's a really interesting difference because you have to think about things differently. I'm no longer able to capitalize an expense and pay and deal with depreciation. Now, for every hour that CPU is running, I'm getting charged. And so is there value to the service? Is it dynamic? Can it go up and down? Can I turn it off at any point? So how you deal with spending control. Oh, just because you turn the machine off, by the way, did you delete the disk that goes with it? And if you didn't, you know you're still being charged for that, right? So spend control becomes a really, really important part of being successful in the cloud. Obviously, cloud migrations, we've talked about SaaS workloads moving to the cloud, but the last pieces of applications are all going to move to the cloud. I referenced it earlier. How do you have the services and the ability to perform those migrations efficiently and effectively? Are you re-platforming at the time that you're doing them? Are you bringing them into a standard cloud SaaS first data center? Are you bringing them into dedicated CPUs? Are you rewriting them into native services? Are you provisioning them to third-party SaaS services? All interesting questions. Those migrations will challenge you and your staff to come up with adequate solutions to ensure that you provide the best services for your customers. This is one of my favorite serverless functions. How many people here have actually dealt with an application that has serverless functions? Ooh, so not that many, right? So serverless functions is the idea here that you can write an application that actually has no running virtual machine. At the time the function is executed, A virtual machine will be created just to perform that workload, and it will instantly go away. Super powerful, super efficient, really different to think about when you're thinking about services and conditions that you want to deal with. But the 12 or 15 hands that went up here, by next year, I expect that this will be a third to maybe half the room. We'll be dealing with applications with serverless functions. That's how fast it's being adopted. Why? Because it helps with spend control. It helps with data security and resilience. And of course, lastly, I'm sure all of you are familiar with the Microsoft Cloud. We all deal with it. And we're going to talk today about how we can help you deal with it better, how we can help you deal with it more effectively, and most importantly, how you can start automating the Microsoft Cloud to make it more efficient for your workforce to get the job done on a daily basis. So now that we know what's on the table and the players that we're going to see, let's talk about the winning hand. So let's move into the flop, right? Poker, 3 cards. Well, we'll get to the third one in a second, I guess. The first one starts with having the right partnership, and having all of you here is a big part of it. Because we're going to help be great partners with you. Hopefully you're going to give us great feedback. And that enable partnership with all of the tools, the head nerds, the automation, market builder, the pieces that we're going to come together in the community and help you get a leg up in the cloud is the first and foremost part of having a great winning hand. Now, the second part of having a great winning hand is not only taking that partnership, but actually executing it for the parts of the business that you're probably very familiar with. Right? Managing physical and remote workstations, whether you're an N-Central customer or you're an Insight customer, super critically important. Because the funny part about all the changes that we've gone on, and we're going to talk about the cloud, is the reality is that our users, the knowledge workers, are still using endpoints. Those endpoints still need to be secured, they still need to be patched, they still need to be managed. None of that has actually gone away. And so as much as I want to talk to you about the cloud, and we're going to get deep into cloud services, I don't want to forget that in order to be successful in the cloud, you have to have a great basis and be grounded in managing the endpoint resources that employees need to be successful. So that's a really, really important part of it. So let's complete the flop, right? Flop's got 3 cards. In order to be successful in the cloud and have a cloud winning hand, you need to have a premier cloud-first data protection story. Why? Because data is everywhere. Data's on-prem, data's in the cloud, and you have to make sure as an MSP that your customer's data is protected, that you can restore it, and that you can remediate anything that may come out, whether it's a malware attack, or a malicious insider, or even just that accidental delete, right? Data protection is critical, and if you can do it in the cloud, you can be successful both on-prem and in cloud. So let's go a little bit deeper with cloud. And let me invite up Stefan Voss, VP of Product Management for Cove Data Protection. What's going on? All right, Stefan. So let's talk a little bit about Cove Data Protection. First and foremost, so why is SAS better for data protection?
Well, the benefit of SaaS-based or cloud-first data protection is the same as any other SaaS service, right? It's faster time to value, greater agility, greater economics, and many times is actually more secure. And just imagine you would stand up an Exchange server just to do messaging. Probably wouldn't do that, right? We're going to do M365. So why would SaaS or data protection be any different? And the rationale is, do I really want to spend my time managing infrastructure, patching, firmware upgrades, right? Those are fun. Storage management and so forth. Procurement with 6 different vendors. Right, it just adds on, and it takes time away from other projects. So I think that's generally the benefit of SaaS-based data protection, that we can free up some time. And we have some partners that we're able to go from 5 full-time equivalents, managing just backup, a lot of the infrastructure, really, down to 1. And so now what you can do, and John just talked about skills shortage and retaining talent, we can put them on greater or better or more profitable projects. Maybe you can do a tabletop exercise as an example.
So, one of the questions that we always get, right, I think when we talk to MSPs and we're out on the road, isn't cloud data already protected by the cloud providers themselves?
Yeah, this is a common misperception that SaaS applications, it's all covered, right? But what companies like Salesforce and, of course, Microsoft will provide is our SLAs, service level agreements around uptime. The service will be available, right? And then you get guarantees, but they will not take responsibility for actually protecting the data, right? That's our responsibility, right? Which is why you need to augment great services that are built into Azure with data protection solutions that are ideally also cloud-based.
So I think there's another misnomer out there, right? We call it a bluff, and we hear it in the market all the time. Doesn't data protection actually have to be local to be successful?
Yeah, there's this whole sort of 3-2-1 copy approach. We've been conditioned to think that way. And look, there's no downside of having a local copy. The problem is we're conditioned to think that way because we're thinking instant recovery times, but we are always typically, or not always, but often forced to put a copy on-premise first, and then we're going to bolt on the cloud to have additional copies. So why not turn it around? Have that initial copy in the cloud where it's off the network, and then be able to have mechanisms to restore on-premise as you need. That's what we do with our standby image. And if you think about the benefits, they also have relevance in the security space, because you don't know where the CISO or the security person is going to ask you to restore to. So restore flexibility and restores that are fast and predictable are more important than an instant recovery, potentially rehydrating malware right back into your network. That can be a liability.
So a lot of this is available today,
Yep.
right? And it's out there. Let's show everyone exactly what Cove Data Protection is all about.
Absolutely. Well, welcome to the Cove Data Protection dashboard. A lot of great filtering, and what we're going to do is we're going to just explore a little bit. Some of the workloads, it's multi-tenant, everything's in one place, on-premise, and this is, of course, SaaS, so I could add servers, workstations. We're going to go and add an M365 domain, which I'm doing right here. Click. I'm going to connect, I'm going to add, probably some of you know this guy, so I'm going to add, and then we're going to validate our permissions, and then I'm off to the races. And at this point, I'm going to have the ability to really be very fine-grained in terms of who gets Exchange, what user gets OneDrive, and so forth. And I am essentially then done, and you can see this domain actually show up in your dashboard, and we're going to be able to protect it from now on. And then the next piece we're going to go to is that DRAS piece, right? So we're going to add a plan that will allow you to actually restore proactively a copy of your critical server onto your local server, right? That's the workflow we're seeing here. We're dropping an agent, silent install. Now, you may have already added some targets. You can do this as a separate activity. And here I'm just selecting one. I can see how much storage is available. I get some insight. Do I have enough room? And then I can select my eligible devices. So devices think servers. And I'm just going to pick 2 here and hit next. It's going to detect the passphrase, make sure the credentials are there. And then I can actually set some additional options. And as you can see here, I can either restore it as a mounted Hyper-V or a flat VHDX file. Get an email if you want to do that, and then basically get sort of your your recovery job was successful emails, right, on a scheduled basis, and then I'm done. And so what will end up happening is this job will show up in your dashboard, and I can filter. And what's nice is you will actually get a screenshot attestation on every job, on every recovery we do, so it's quite frequent. And that's essentially what I'm going to show here. It's a nice value add, and it actually includes a full audit log of all the services that are firing up. So if you want to learn more, come to the booth, and we can take you a little bit deeper than that, but we just wanted to tee it up.
Thanks, Stefan. And I think it's really, interesting as we think about all the power that's in Cove Data Protection today and that we've launched over this year, but we're not done. There's still a lot to go. So what's coming next over the next 12 months for Cove?
Absolutely. I mean, we're far from done, right? There's always, but what we're always going to do is we're going to bias and prioritize quality, security, right, over cool new features. So, that, for example, we want to make sure we continue to modernize our service because it's going to make it more scalable, more reliable, right, more secure. We're going to want to simplify, right? While it's easy to use, there is room for improvement to simplify that retention framework, to make it a little bit less confusing, and provide a customer viewable audit service. Who did a recovery? Who deleted a device? And so forth. And then on the SaaS side, we know that we have a gap, right? We don't support teams. So that is something we definitely are working on right now and we want to add. But we don't want to do it at the expense of our current M365 experience. We want to support larger domains, better reporting, and so forth, right, is some of the work we're laying down as a foundation before we onboard another M365 workload. And lastly, the continuity workflow that I just showed, rather than restoring to your local machine or local NAS server, what if we could actually restore it into an Azure instance that's provided by you? For a lot of us, that's kind of the game changer because you're now staying in the context of a cloud and you can liberate yourself from on-premises infrastructure. That's kind of what's up next.
All right, well, thank you, Stefan. We appreciate it. There'll be more information on Clove provided over the course of the next 2 days.
Bye, guys.
And as Stefan mentioned, I want to summarize that. At cloud-first disaster recovery, business continuity, data protection, it can be done in the cloud. It can be done without local storage. We can bust down all those myths, but it can be literally as simple as that demo just walked through. A bunch of button clicks, an agent deploy, and you are off and running. That is going to give you a really solid card towards that winning hand of being successful in the cloud. So let's move on to the river. All right, sorry, to the turn. The fourth one is always called the turn. And dealing with Microsoft 365 management. And we referenced this earlier, Cloud User Hub, the product we've just recently introduced, and I know maybe new to many of you in the, here today, deals with how you can be successful provisioning and automating and administrating Microsoft 365. So let's spend a couple of minutes there, and I'm going to ask Laura DuBois, our Group Vice President of Product Management, to come up and join us. Laura, good to have you with us today.
It's great to be here.
All right, so let's just kind of do a little bit of education. So what's the problem that Cloud User Hub solves for MSPs?
Yeah, Mike, that's a great question. So as Mike mentioned, as John mentioned earlier, Cloud User Hub is a cloud management platform. And it's really designed to solve three key problems. The first one is around how do you drive up productivity and efficiency? Yeah, we've got techs that may be leaving the organization. You've got challenges of labor scarcity and retaining the talent you have. The more that you can drive improve productivity through things like automation, the better able you are to retain the IP in your organization. As people come and go, you're future-proofed. And so that's the first key thing that Cloud User Hub is designed for. Now, the productivity and efficiency we deliver is in twofold. One is bringing together in a common control plane different M365 tenants and users and license management. So you don't have to portal hop through many different partner center consoles. And then the second area of productivity and efficiency is around automation. Now, the second area around problems that we're looking to solve is security. Now, we all understand the challenges that are growing in managing and securing your customers' and tenants' environments. We have a number of capabilities in the product to help mitigate risk from a security perspective. So, for example, we use a least privilege model for permissions assignment for techs. So you can have a granular permission that one tech is just doing password resets. Another tech might be looking at monitoring and alerting on disabling of multi-factor authentication, user disabling of multi-factor authentication, right? So variants there. And you can have granular role-based access controls. We have detailed auditing. And we have things like Azure Active Directory integration as well. So a number of capabilities in the product that help with security. We also pull in Microsoft Secure Scores, so you can begin to look at the security of your estate across all of your tenants. And then the last key thing, Mike, is around business management and license administration and invoicing. And how do you do that in a way that's continuing to ensure your licenses are optimized at a maximum level? and that you're maximizing your revenue and your profitability for your business. So those are really the three key things that we're trying to do.
Well, so let's dig in on that efficiency question, because I think that's a big one. I think everyone here would like to be more efficient in managing the Microsoft environment. How does Cloud User Hub actually help our partners be more efficient?
Yeah, so at the heart of it is an automation engine. And so there's two types of automation. There's automation blocks, which are granular automation tasks that you can set up. And the product has hundreds of different loaded automation routines within the product, so canned automation routines. You don't have to create those. You can just leverage them as they exist. Things like onboarding M365 users, right, as an example. And then you can chain together automation blocks into what we call an automation set. And so that might look something like I onboard a user, I allocate them a license, I add them to some Teams channels, and then I send out an email to notify them that they're in the Teams channel. You can do that one user or many users, right? So that kind of example of automation might around a command set and a command block and a command set.
So and that's a big efficiency gain, I think, for our partners, and something that all of them would like to take advantage of. I don't want to leave out, there's a couple other capabilities you haven't mentioned yet. What are the big ones that we want to highlight?
Yeah, so the Cloud User Hub automation is basically a low-code platform. And so you can use the canned automations that we provide in the platform, but you can also design your own automations. So we have an automation designer that helps you do that. Other features in the product, and you'll see this in the demo, are things like reporting, and also the Azure Directory integration that I mentioned earlier. And the one that I really like is the ability to provide your customers with license management, right? So we have a self-service portal so that you can help your customers to manage their own M365 licenses and how they allocate those to users. So those are some of the examples of the capabilities in the product. Obviously, we're going to improve and expand on it over time.
All right, well, we've talked about it. So let's show it, and let's show folks. And this is a product that's available. You can we'll take a demo here, but also available, and in production trials are available. We'll get to that in just a second.
Yeah.
So Laura?
Yeah, that sounds great. So what you'll see here is the Cloud User Hub multi-tenant management construct. So on the right-hand side, I'm going to go over and navigate to my different tenants. So here you're seeing the list of tenants, and I'm going to drill into one cafe store. There's also Commander Shop. I'm looking for all of the users in Cafe Store, and then I can quickly search and filter for a particular user that I might need to manage. I can also execute commands. So I talked about command blocks. So here I'm going to execute a command that's going to list all of the Teams channels across all of my tenants. And so you can see here the Teams channels by tenant, and when that command executed. And then you can go to reports and see an information about those Teams channels. Now, as we go to the reports, you'll see that you can look at those team channels. In this case, it's Commander Shop over time, right? So there's a level of history, so you can look at the changes to the channels over time. Another example of the commands is around license usage. So here we're going to pull in, and we integrate with Partner Center to pull in license information. Here we're going to execute a command to look at the number of licenses that have been allocated. And so here you can drill into the reports for how those licenses are allocated. You can see by tenant, as well as in aggregate, the license allocation, what's allocated, what's not been allocated, and other information about those licenses. Now, another capability, in addition to license management, is invoicing. So if you're a partner that's have a direct relationship with Microsoft, as a direct CSP, we pull in information from the Microsoft invoicing. So you can look at your invoices on a monthly basis and over time. You can look at what that margin and revenue looks like for you by those invoices, break it down by customer and subscriptions that they have. And lastly is security. So security, here we're executing a command block to look at secure scores, Microsoft secure scores. So we're running the command, we're looking at that in this particular case for Cafe Store. He's got a score of a 59 out of 231, so some work to do. I've got some work to do here. And then you can look at those secure scores across tenants as well. And so when you go to the reports, you'll see, and you can create these jobs to run on a schedule anytime you want, so there's flexibility in terms of when these jobs run. And then you can see those secure scores over time and drill into how those secure scores look against the controls that have been set up for that tenant. And so these are some illustration of the automation driving efficiency, the security capabilities to mitigate risk, and then lastly, the business administration to optimize your revenue and profit. So that's it, Mike.
There we go. So that's Cloud User Hub in about 2 minutes. But for those of you who haven't seen this, as I said, this is a product we just introduced just a couple of months ago. We have demos available in the expo hall. There's experts and product managers with you throughout the Empower experience. Please help us get you that information that you need. There's a lot of power here. This is something that's new in the marketplace to really help bring together the power of managing the Microsoft ecosystem. And it's super powerful, and we think a real benefit to really helping partners be successful and efficient in managing Microsoft.
Yeah.
But it's available today.
Yep.
But we're not done.
No.
Nope. So we still have some work to do, and we still have a roadmap of things that we want to deliver. So Laura, what's the next 12 months look like here?
Yeah, so I mean, we're going to be continuing to improve the product, and we're going to be adding integration into End Central and Insight, or RMM. We're going to be looking at integrations with disties and indirect CSP partners like Ingram or Pax8, so that's coming. And we're going to be adding more content. We're going to be adding more canned automations to our automation library. And overall, continue to evolve and expand the platform to be a fuller and richer cloud management platform. So,
all right.
Yeah.
Well, there you have it, Cloud User Hub. Laura, thank you very much.
Yes, thank you so much.
All right, one more card. Let's finish strong on the river. And this is something that we are talking about here at Empower that will be coming out early next year, and that is our Cloud Asset Manager. And to talk about that, let me bring up Subo Guha, our VP of Product Management for our RM solution. Subo. And this is the other side of, right, you have your user management, and now we're going to talk about how you manage all those assets, all those other pieces. So let's start with the challenge, because it's always good, I think, to set the stage here. What makes managing cloud assets so hard for MSPs?
Yeah, so Mike, we consistently hear from a lot of the MSPs, especially a lot of the folks here have given us feedback. It's very difficult to discover, manage, and see all of the asset cloud resources. It gets even more problematic when you want to see it across all their customers. Typically what we hear is you can do one customer at a time for some of the tools. You presented at the beginning of the table. Think of how many resources now you can manage in the cloud. We're talking about virtual machines, we're talking about storage, we're talking about networking, we're talking about serverless. So be able to visualize all that and then across your customer is very difficult with the existing tools. Second, what we hear is if I want to do the depth and breadth of management of these Azure infrastructure resources, I may have to use multiple tools, right? Some tools for performance management, some tools for other capabilities. So kind of like your check, what we're going to raise it is we need a unified way to give our customers the visibility of all customers together with all resources together.
All right, you brought up cost a little bit in there. Like, what makes understanding cloud costs so hard?
Yeah, so that's interesting. So by definition, the benefit of a cloud is it's elastic, meaning there's a dynamic nature. You're probably adding resources, deleting resources at a much rapid pace. And it's probably very difficult to understand how much you're getting charged at the end of the month because of this dynamic fluidity that's happening in the cloud. So that's causing a lot of angst in terms of why am I getting charged for what? You raised a good, we call it the orphan resource problem. You could have decommissioned a VM, but all the underlying resources under it, the next devices, if you don't turn them off, you're going to get charged. And we call that the orphan resource problem. So cost management in the cloud, while there's benefit of elasticity, you better manage cost.
All right. So Cloud Asset Manager, coming soon. How do we think Cloud Asset Manager helps MSPs?
Yeah, and I think the point here is, I think John brought it up in the earlier session. A lot of the SMEs are going to spend $1 trillion. You brought up in terms of conversions. Cloud is here, and it's not going away. It's just going to grow. So we need the capability. And wouldn't it be nice for a lot of you guys are used to using our RMM tools, whether it's End Central and Insight. Why not make these products to be cloud capable? And that's where we introduce CAM, which is the Cloud Asset Manager, and be able to have extensibility of your today's management into the cloud. And so that way, we're going to actually show you how that's going to happen with all the problems I just talked about: visibility, cost management, easily be able to drill down. So I think the best way to do this, Mike, is let's just show them the
Yeah,
product.
let's just show them to them in the product.
Cool. So this is actually in development. So the first thing obviously you want to do is you want to be able to authenticate with your Azure admin resources, and you kind of go through your standard Microsoft authentication. Once you get authenticated, voila, you get to see all your tenants in one place. Now you can pick and choose what tenants you want to manage, and that way you can have a multi-tenant view of all your assets. Once you're authenticated, this is what you guys have been asking for. One place, all resources types by customers. These are not all managed, and you can only see certain types of capabilities. Once you select the resources you want to manage, then you can start seeing the color changes. You're able to now drill down a little bit more. If you click on an asset, let's say VMs, you can actually see the summary, you can see alerts, and you can see activity. Now you're talking about deep. You want to be able to see everything in one place, as well as manage. You can be able to go into one of the virtual machines. You can start, stop directly from the portal, as well as you'll be able to do different capabilities of history of the alerts and the monitoring capabilities, as well as the health. Let's take another one, like a NIC. You want to be able to drill down into the NIC and then be able to see that packets are important. So the whole idea is we're going to give you a view of the different Azure resources and then the drill downs. This is the other thing we're going to be working on is the subscription cost. In one place, be able to see cost, as well as these orphaned resources. Because these are things you're getting charged because you did not delete them. So we want to be able to discover that, delete them, optimize your cost. Now, in terms of kind of how we bring this home, you want to be able to have an aggregation view of everything. So we want to provide you a dashboard that summarizes all your resources together. And from that, you can go to the different resources which I just presented and do all the actions that we talked about. Or you can actually manage the user's views of all of this together. So this is what we are currently actively building. It's called Cloud Asset Manager. There's going to be some booths you can go to, as well as some of the sessions.
So super exciting. By the way, we're showing this integrated into Insight. It will also be integrated directly into N-Central as the capability is being delivered for both of our remote management platforms at the same time. And we're really super excited about it. So this is the first part, and it's available early next year as it comes in, and we're really excited about it. But we're not done with it. There's still some more coming behind that as we continue to build out our cloud capabilities. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, and that's important. We're building this with your input. This is your product. And what we want to do is make sure we do it right, and we're doing the right prioritized ways to deliver and expose the cloud resources. So we're actively integrating with the Insight and N-Central product. We will be calling for your help to be part of the preview through this year and the beginning of next year, so that make sure that on an iterative, agile fashion, we're taking your input. And I've talked to a lot of you guys, some of you guys were in the pack. This is a journey. And we want to take this journey with you and make sure we're prioritizing the right slices to build this out. So what we're going to focus first, what we've heard is virtual machines tend to be the most commonly used. Be able to see it, be able to drill down it, be able to perform actions. Then we want to keep adding resources. We hear things like backup, we talk about SQL. We're going to prioritize based on your feedback. And then, I'll be asking all of you guys, as I have, Azure seems to be the primary focus. We're not going to be done. We're going to look at AWS, GCP, as it makes sense. But we want to go deep in Azure first.
Awesome. Cloud Asset Manager coming to a product near you real soon. Subo, thanks so much for the time. Appreciate it.
Good.
So there you have it, the winning hand, right? Cloud First Data Protection, Microsoft 365 Management, Cloud Asset Management. Those services combined, brought together, integrated into the tools that you're already using to manage the infrastructure and endpoints in your environment. That's how you're going to win in the cloud. And to enable that vision is really about bringing the cloud through Enable to you in real life. It's not, as much as I want to, it's not the Zeus image. It's not make-believe. It's real life, right? It's a story that each of you are living each and every day as you provide IT services. We want to give you the tools to make you more efficient. We want to give you the tools to build more services. And as we do that, we want to hear from you on how we can help you create new offerings. How can we help you build new capabilities and new services that you can bring into the marketplace to differentiate yourselves from everybody else in the marketplace. We want all of our Enable partners to succeed. We want you to win. We want you to be able to play the winning hand and have the cards that are going to allow you to be successful. So, that's what we're excited about. That's where we're headed. We're going to make you successful in the cloud, ensure that you can be successful as a business. Obviously, I've only given you just a little taste of all the product enhancements and some of the directions that we're taking our products. There are a bunch of sessions as we have a number of our product managers here at Empower over the next 2 to 3 days. We have the demo booths in the expo hall. Please come talk to us to learn more and to provide feedback. It helps us do the best thing that we can do. Listen, we're psyched about Empower. We're psyched to be here in person, and we're psyched to help you be successful with the cloud. Thank you very much.